In this video, I show you how to play riffs in between the chords you play on guitar in the style of players like Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan and John Mayer. Rhythm fills, or chord fills as they are known, sound great punctuating the chord progressions you play on guitar. They provide a great way to add interest to your rhythm guitar playing. Hi, this is Simon Candy from AcousticGuitarLessonsOnline.net, and in this lesson you're going to learn several common chord rhythm fills that can be applied to any progressions you play on guitar. These fills relate to common chord shapes that act as a reference to help anchor the fill down onto the fretboard, which allows you to easily access it. In addition to learning several chord fill variations, I also will show you how to put these together into a progression so you can hear how great they sound in a musical context. Watch until the end of this video for a special resource I've created for you on rhythm guitar and many ways you can approach playing a single chord progression in addition to the chord fills that we're going to cover in today's lesson. So let's get to it. Okay, so let's have a look at our first chord fill or rhythm fill here. What you'll find, as I said just before, these fills that we're going to play are in a rhythm guitar context, and we need to anchor them down with chord shapes so that they become easily accessible when we're playing rhythm guitar. So the first few rhythm fills I'm going to show you here are based off of the root 5 major bar chord, very common bar chord shape. Okay, I'll use C as my example here. So we've got a C root 5 bar chord shape. Now it's not going to be directly related to this shape. It's actually going to be related to an inverted or an inversion of that C chord. Okay, so what's happening here is, this is my root position, root 5, C major bar chord. Now if I take the root note and move it up to the E, which is the third in the chord, and put that in the bass instead of this C, it becomes a C first inversion, or just an inverted C chord. So notice the notes that were under my third finger when I was playing the root position bar chord are the same notes that are under my first finger in this inversion. These are the 5th fretted notes on strings 4, 3, 2. And then I just simply have my third finger play the E in the C chord there. That's the first inversion. So these riffs I'm about to show you, these fills, are based on that shape. But that shape can be anchored down on the fretboard to you by relating it back to the root position. You can see that it's just the same chord, really, essentially, with a different note in the bass. Our first riff, or fill, is going to go like this. Okay, again. Okay, so these little fills here, once we've split up, right, are all coming from this root 5 inverted shape. It's not root 5 actually, it's just a C inverted shape. Okay, so that's where those fills and those double stops are coming from. Okay, so with this particular fill, we slide into that third, we've got a double stop, strings 4 and 3 at the 5th fret, and then we get double stop hammer on to the 7th, back to that double stop, and then hammer on pull off, and we finish on the 3rd of the chord. Okay, that's the first fill there. You can play these fills with a pick, like I am right now. If you want to use your fingers, that's fine. You might prefer the sound with the fingers. Or perhaps you're just playing something that's finger picking, so that's why you're going to use your fingers and not a pick. Or if you want, and I do this quite often, I think I do this quite often, and that is I use a bit of both. I use my pick, and then some of these, I tend to use the pick for the lower sort of notes in the fill, and then my fingers for these double stops. So you can mix and match. I make my decisions based on the sound basically, but also the context in which I'm playing. If I'm playing something with the flat pick, I'll use the pick or pick and fingers. If I'm finger picking something, well then I'm just going to use my fingers. Now that's the first fill. Here's a few variations of that same fill based off of the same shape. So we've got this one. Okay, so this is much the same thing. Root note up to the 3rd, hammer on, and then here, instead of going up a little bit higher as we did in the other one, we just come back to that double stop, to the 3rd of the chord, back to the double stop, and back to the 3rd of the chord. Okay. that's our second or a variation of the first riff. And here's a variation of the same fills here based off the same chord, and it goes like this. And again. You can hear the difference of the tone when I was using my fingers there. Versus. It just depends on the sound that you want. Okay, so now let's have a look at a few fills, chord fills here, rhythm fills, based off of the root 6 bar chord this time. These will be directly related to the root 6 bar chord. So I'm going to use C again as the example. So up here at the 8th fret. This time they're going to come directly from the shape, not an inversion of sorts here, just directly from the shape. However, we can't play the bar chord in the sort of traditional sense of, you know, the first finger, the index laying flat and barring, because it doesn't really give our fingers any sort of room or leverage to move to create the fill, to create the embellishments around the chord. So we need to do this thing where we bring the thumb around to play the root note on the bottom string, and then the 3 fingers, 1, 2, and 3, play this little, you know, or the bar chord fragment on the top, like the F chord shape you might have learned, you know, early days down here in the, you know, open position, first position, but up here, and the thumb over the top for the bass. Okay. Having said that though, I understand it can feel uncomfortable. So anything I show you here, you can disregard the root note on the bottom string and use the root note on the 4th string instead. So I'll show you as we go through each riff the variation that you could do to avoid that for the moment. The first fill here goes like this. Okay, and again. Okay, so what's happening here, I've got my thumb playing the root note, and then I've got this chord shape here is formed the whole time. That's anchored down. Don't move anything here. Don't take anything away from here. You've got to keep that. And then the pinky hammers onto the first string, the second string, and the 3rd string. Okay, so the pinky is hammering down onto the top 3 strings of the chord there. So we've got on the 1st string, 2nd, and on that 3rd string there, okay, for our fill. Okay, so as I said, if the thumb feels really uncomfortable right now for you, you can use the root note on the 4th string like this. And that will be perfectly fine. If you do use the thumb, you don't have to keep that necessarily ringing through the whole time as you play the fill. You may, because you want to hear that root note ringing through. It's a little harder because you've got to keep all these fingers down at the same time, but you could just play the root note with the thumb and then relax it and concentrate on the top part of the chord. So it's certainly fine to play it like that. Okay, so that's the first fill. That's probably the more challenging one because there's a lot going on with the pinky there. So a variation of that, thumb again, then we strum the top part of the chord and then come down in a similar fashion to the previous riff. So what's happening this time is we're playing the root note, we're strumming the top part of the chord and then hammer onto the 10th fret of the 2nd string and 10th fret of the 3rd string. And then again, everything else around the hammer-ons here, you've got to make sure you hit the right strings, but the notes are already there if you're holding this core shape, the top 4 strings of the bar chord. That's the main shape to have under your fingers the whole time while you're playing these little fills, okay? So that's the variation. And one more variation, based off the same chord shape, of course, is going to be this one. Okay, and again. Okay, so much the same sort of thing going on here. We've got the root note, then after having played that, we go to the top and we hammer on the pinky, then onto the 2nd string, and this time when we go to the 3rd string, no hammer on, it's just the pinky goes onto the 10th fret and you pluck the double stop there before taking it off, and then resolve to the root on the 4th string. Okay, and if you prefer, you can avoid the thumb and just play this riff from the root note on the 4th string. And it would sound like that. Okay, so let's have a look at putting these fills into a little bit more of a musical context. Now, just before we do, what I would suggest with what I've shown you so far is take each of the variations of the fills and just play them sort of back to back. Get your fingers used to mixing and matching these variations. So for example, if I use the root 5 that we had a look at, you'd play each of the fills. So just any sort of variations that you come up with yourself too, of course. That's one thing. The other is, of course, yes, applying it to a musical context. So our context is going to be a 3-bar chord progression consisting of a G chord, and 4 to a D, 2, 3, and 4 to a C, 2, 3, and 4, and then it starts again on the G. It's a bit of a loop here. The D, and the C, 2, 3, and then we're back at the start again on G. So that's our context. So for the G, we're going to use the root 6 type fills here. So I was showing you those on the C chord before. We need to move them down to the G position. That's what we're going to do when we're playing the G chord. On the D, we'll use the root 5 fills that we were doing earlier on the C, based off of that little inverted shape there. And then the C itself is in this chord progression. Root 5 will do the same. We'll do the same little fills based off of the C as well for the root 5. So that is what is the setup here. And let me now give you an example of the fills applied to that chord progression. Okay, so I was just playing, I think it was the second fill I showed you of the root 6 on the G, strumming, and then pinky, hammering on to the D. This was the first fill I showed you of the root 5s back on the C earlier, but only applied to D here. And then down to the C. Okay, I think that was the third fill I showed you on the C. Okay, so 3 fills, variations of each other, applied to a chord progression. So again, we had the G, to a D, to a C, and then back to the G again. The D, C, and back to the G again. Okay, so let me show you one more variation, one more example of the same chord progression, just a few variations on the fills applied. If you like this video, then you will love this ebook audio I've created for you called Awesome Acoustic Rhythm Techniques that will transform the way you play your guitar. In this ebook, I take you through one of the most common chord progressions in music. What's not so common are the approaches I show you that can be applied to this particular chord progression. You will learn how to use embellishments and extensions to decorate the progressions you play, much like a pianist would, and these things result in very cool, unique and sophisticated sounding music. You'll also learn more ways to use chord and rhythm fills in your playing in addition to what we've learned in today's lesson. So click the link in the description below this video and download your free ebook audio, Awesome Acoustic Rhythm Techniques that will transform the way you play your guitar. Let me know in the comments section what guitar topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. I'm going to be making lots and lots of videos and I'd love to hear your suggestions. So put them down in the comments so I can hear what you have to say. If you like this video, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell button so YouTube can tell you when I release a new video. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, thanks for your time, thanks for watching this video, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one.